The following program is intended for mature audiences.
Hey everyone, welcome to the podcast. It's Tuesday, August 23rd, 2022. This week in the headlines, Reuters launches hit piece on video hosting alternatives BitChute and Odysee. Also, did the Biden administration retroactively reclassify documents to entrap former President Trump? The World Economic Forum and its world government partners institute a series of attacks on human freedom. And Dr. Fauci to retire in effort to avoid investigation. I'll be talking about all these headlines and more coming up right now. All right, the first article up is this hit piece from Reuters, hit piece on BitChute and Odysee. And it says, BitChute and Odysee serve up conspiracies, racism, and graphic violence to millions of viewers taking advantage of big tech, disinformation, crackdowns, and the rise of Trump. The site reflects new media universe, one where COVID-19 is fake, Russia fights Nazis in Ukraine, and mass shootings are false flag operations. Not like Uvalde, where we still can't explain the police stand down. And they can't explain, and they don't explain. And as you see in this article, if you choose to read it, is that they don't explain anything. They don't attack these so-called conspiracies or misinformation or disinformation. They talk a lot to disinformation experts and how, these sites are terrible. And like they did with Gab, it's very similar to the attack they did on Gab, saying, well, this is a bastion, a haven for right-wingers, conspiracy nuts, and race haters and this sort of thing. So they talk a lot about hating racism and conspiracy theories, but there's one I just wanted to get into here. All right, so I'm just going to concentrate here on one aspect of this article, just to demonstrate basically what I'm saying here is, if you didn't know, I'm on BitChute, I'm on Rumble, I'm on some alternative platforms. If you're listening on Anchor, Spotify, or other podcasts, there's video versions on YouTube and on other video hosting sites. I got a lot of strikes on YouTube initially, and to avoid getting banned completely, I moved to other sites, but now I'm back publishing on YouTube. But there's this one paragraph here. They say, searching for COVID on BitChute one recent day produced a short film called Plandemic as a top result. Plandemic was banned by YouTube and Facebook for its potentially harmful misinformation, including the claim that wearing a face mask literally activates your own virus. Now, everybody probably listening to this knows that this isn't the case, is that people knew, if you know anything about epidemiology, and there are plenty of people who do, know that face masks aren't going to, especially most of the face masks that people were wearing, aren't going to prevent you from getting sick. It's the same thing with the vaccine, is that it has limited, if any, protection from the COVID virus. But one thing I wanted to look at closely here is that at least 7 of the top COVID search results on Odysee also contain falsehoods. For example, the vaccine contains dangerous nanoparticles or had side effects that are like a nuclear bomb. And the reason they frame it like this and they word it like this is the mischaracterization is that the vaccine contains dangerous nanoparticles. Now, the vaccine contains nanoparticles. Whether or not they're dangerous is up to debate. And they said, or have side effects that are like a nuclear bomb. Well, obviously, that's disinformation, because if you take it literally, the side effects are not like a nuclear bomb. There's no radiation, whatever. So they're really mischaracterizing that whole statement. What the person meant was there is side effects that will do some damage, will hit you in a very forceful way, and that in itself is very disturbing. But they said dangerous nanoparticles. Now, here I have from NIH, PubMed, mRNA lipid nanoparticle COVID-19 vaccine structure and stability. So it talks about the nanoparticles in the vaccines. There it is, right there in plain view. So why doesn't Reuters look at these statements? But they don't, because it's a smear campaign, and they take everything, they take it out of context, what the people mean and what they literally say. So the New York Times does this all the time in saying, look what they literally said. Well, it's, the side effects aren't like a nuclear bomb. That's not disinformation. I mean, people is exaggeration misinformation or disinformation? I don't think so. So moving along, did Joe Biden reclassify Russia collusion docs that Trump classified? By now, you know the story of the raid on Donald Trump's home on Mar-a-Lago. They start off in their lead on PJ Media. There's been a pitched debate in the chattering class on TV and the media about Trump's ability to declassify information. And since he did declassify items, why is it alleged crime now to possess those documents? And he writes, I may have a beginning of an answer. It's indisputable that the president may classify and declassify documents. The office of the president has had this authority since World War II. President Obama even codified it, the executive authority to do it in an executive order. The Washington Post admits. So basically, Trump declassified documents, but it looks like Joe Biden reclassified the documents to make it illegal for him to possess it. It's a trap. Now, Breitbart reports documents show Biden White House involvement in Trump criminal probe. So originally, Joe Biden said that he didn't know anything about what the DOJ was planning or about the raid that was going to be conducted on Mar-a-Lago. A memo surfaces and proves that that's exactly wrong, is that Joe Biden was conferring with the National Archive and the DOJ in May to launch this basic attack on his rival's presidential campaign. It's obvious what it is. Now, this is lead stories. Fact check, WEF did not announce recruitment of information warriors to control narrative on social media. So what they say basically here is that the World Economic Forum did not announce the formation of a recruitment of information warriors. That they did, however, hold a podcast where the WEF podcast features Melissa Fleming, who leads global communications for the UN, talking about Verified, launched in May 2020 in an effort to fight misinformation around COVID-19. So far, we have recruited 110,000 information volunteers, and we equip these information volunteers with a kind of knowledge about how misinformation spreads and ask them to serve as kind of digital first responders in those spaces where information travels. So basically, people working for the UN, which partnered a year before the podcast, partnered with the World Economic Forum in a strategic partnership framework. So you could see how the world government is forming the elites and the corporate elite, the corporate world government, who founded the UN and the League of Nations before it, but founded the UN and then began meeting in secret as the Bilderberg Group, then became public as a World Economic Forum, and they announced their public strategic partnership, which the elite corporate class are the ones behind the UN anyway. And so they have this public framework, and so the UN announces that through Verified, they're going to recruit 110,000 volunteers to police the internet. And then all of a sudden you have articles like Reuters. Here you go. Well, those 110 volunteers working for Verified discovered BitChute and went on there and ruined it, or tried to ruin it, just like Gab, saying it's a bastion of right-wing extremists and other conspiracy nuts. When the fact is most of the people are there because they were banned off YouTube, censored off YouTube because of, as Justin Trudeau would have put it, unacceptable views. I mean, what's an unacceptable view? It's like misinformation or disinformation. It's neither of those exist. Information is information. Is it accurate? Is it inaccurate? Well, we'll look into that. So the World Economic Forum calls to reduce private vehicles by eliminating ownership. The World Economic Forum says steps need to be taken to reduce resilience on critical metals. The green energy push. So basically, it's hidden in this World Economic Forum to be more resilient in returns, and they often do this. They mask everything on in another guise, and so they want to eliminate gasoline-powered vehicles because vehicle sharing initiatives like Get Around and Blue SG have become increasingly popular around the world. And just like Uber and Lyft and these things, which are going to be electric and which are going to be driverless, they want to, as part of the Great Reset and the New World Order, is to eliminate citizen ownership of firearms, but also citizen ownership of vehicles, and in particularly gasoline-powered vehicles. This is from Newsmax. World Economic Forum, rational reasons to microchip kids. Should you implant a tracking chip in your child? A blog post from the WEF asks. There are solid rational reasons for this, like safety. Would you actually do it? Is it a bridge too far? Once you start implanting, it's like a vaccine. Once you start putting things into your body, you don't know necessarily the motivation behind those chips or the vaccine or what they're going to do or how they're going to monitor you. You don't know. And so they're just broaching the subject by saying, would you try it? Would you do it? Most people wouldn't. Some people would. But this is the brave new world we're looking into. From CNBC, Australian bank to scrap loans for new diesel and gasoline cars as country looks to increase EV uptake. While there will be no more loans for new combustion engine vehicles, including hybrids, from 2025, Bank Australia will continue to provide them for used ones. Significantly behind the pack when it comes to electric vehicles. Basically, what they want to do is, it's like firearm ownership. They're going to go after the manufacturers. Now, if you can't get a loan for a new car, new gasoline car, the manufacturers will stop making them. And then there you go. You have to get an electric vehicle, and then they are going to get rid of the private ownership of vehicles completely, so you'll have to rely on ride shares like Lyft, Uber, that don't have drivers, that whisk you around, and let's say your social credit score isn't where it's supposed to be, they can ban you from moving around. That's why the Elite was called a motor vehicle, an automobile, because it allows you to get around by yourself without any reliance on anybody else, except for transportation departments and whatnot, building roads. But before roads were ever built, in the early days of the motor vehicle or the automobile, is that they found ways. And if you have a four-wheel drive, you have a great deal of autonomy. So what they're doing is they're taking the automobile away. They're taking your autonomy away, your autonomy of movement. So most of you have heard Dr. Fauci announces retirement, and the Federalist writes, Dr. Fauci announces retirement in hopes of avoiding accountability for his lies. Americans know Fauci is a fraud who has done irreparable harm to our people and our nation. Will he be held accountable? He plans to retire in December. He's not waiting until January 2025, as he previously announced, a sign he may be trying to get out of town before the bill comes due. And then they outlined some of the things that he needs to be held accountable for: COVID's Chinese origin, NIH funding in Wuhan, face mask flip-flopping, national quarantine, vaccine mandates, therapeutics, royalty payments, etc. That he'd have to answer questions on all of these, on what his role was and involvement in all these terrible, terrible things that really cause irreparable harm, especially to children. And the last article up here is from Time Magazine: egregious deficiencies, bots and foreign agents, the biggest allegations from Twitter whistleblower. And the only reason I bring this up with the whistleblower, Peter Zatko, a famous hacker and one of the nation's top cybersecurity experts. He served as Twitter's security lead from November 2020 to January 2022 when he was fired by the new CEO, Parag Agrawal. And if you look at this article, basically what he says is that the majority, they are a great deal of bots. And he speaks specifically about the Indian intelligence agencies having access, easily hacked access to Twitter, but also the number of bots, in the amount of Twitter users that are actual bots, is very large. And he wanted to bring this out because he said Twitter was lying to Elon Musk during the purchase agreement. And I just want to say this adds to my argument that said most of the bots on Twitter are put there by intelligence agencies and controlled by intelligence agencies to manufacture public opinion. It's not hard to figure out. I thought it was mostly through the CIA and the NSA, American intelligence agencies, but apparently it's intelligence agencies all over the world that use Twitter to manufacture public opinion. All right, so for me, we'll see you tomorrow. Rudy's Revelation. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Leave a comment. Check me out, social media, Facebook, Twitter, Get Our Minds. See you tomorrow.